Hello and welcome from Buenos Aires, Argentina to this episode of Crossing Borders with Nathan Lustig, where Nita's conversations with entrepreneurs doing business across borders and the people who support them, with a focus on those that have some connection to Latin America. My name is Josefina Dominguez and I am an editor for Latimlist, a proud sponsor of the Crossing Borders podcast. Sign up for our weekly updates on latimlist.com to get a summary of the week's biggest headlines in Latin American tech news. Nate's guest today is Alex Torrenegra, a serial entrepreneur known for founding companies like Voice123, BunnyStudio, and Tribe, and most recently Torre, an AI-powered recruitment platform. They talk about Alex's entrepreneurial trajectory from getting a loan from a bank at just 14 years old with his first business to moving from his native Colombia to the US and eventually founding Torre. Alex also discusses Voice123's business model and the benefits of bootstrapping a company. We hope you enjoy this conversation with Alex Torrenegra.
Hey, Alex, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Nathan. Great to be here.
Where are you in the world today?
In Napa, California, 1 hour north of San Francisco.
Very nice. And where are you from originally?
Colombia, Bogota, downtown Bogota, actually.
Tell me a little bit about your business. What are you working on today?
Torre, we are building a new professional network, quite ambitious, is what many people would refer to as a moonshot. But we know that the internet has enabled the human knowledge to have low arbitrage in many aspects. Right, 20 plus years ago, learning about any topic would take a significant amount of time just to know what you had to learn about that given topic. Today, within seconds, you can know what book you have to buy, what article you have to read, what video you have to watch, etc. Same with flights, same with buying stuff online. But if I were to ask you, who is the best software developer for you to hire tomorrow for your new startup? Or the best piano tutor for your kids? Or the best part-time executive assistant? First, the answer is not going to take seconds or minutes, not even hours or days. It's going to take weeks or months. And even worse, the answer is not going to be accurate. You're not going to tell me who is the best person on earth for that, the same way that you can do with many other areas of human knowledge. The best you are going to be able to do is tell me who is the best person out of the couple dozen people you were able to interact in reference to this opportunity. And that means that that's a humongous asymmetry of information that we take for granted today. But it means that most talent is going to waste because it is never exposed to the right opportunities. And we believe that there is going to be one day some kind of network that is going to allow companies to find talent on real time, skip interviews, skip screening processes. With one click, they are going to be able to submit offers, and the same for people, for candidates, both for flexible and full-time work. And it's not a matter of if that's going to happen, it's a matter of when it is going to happen and who's going to do it. And well, we are working on being the ones creating it.
So we're going to dig a lot more into the business in a little bit here, but I wanted to talk a little bit about your background. So you're from Colombia. Did you always know you wanted to be an entrepreneur, or is that just something that came up in your business career?
I became an entrepreneur out of necessity, not out of passion. For me, entrepreneurship is more of a catalyst for innovation and tech innovation in particular. I had to start my first company when I was 14 so that I could buy a computer. I fell in love with computers very early on in my life. It's the oldest memory I have. And but coming from a modest family, living in downtown Bogota, one of the most dangerous areas that you can find in Bogota, we didn't have money to buy a car, to write taxes, and much less to buy a computer. So I had to go to the computer classroom at the university where my mother used to be a secretary and sneak in after hours to be able to play with the computers in there. And finally, when I was 14, I realized that I if I could somehow get a loan, I might be able to build a business and use the computer to pay back that loan that I got, and it worked. And since then, I've seen how entrepreneurship, being a founder, and has allowed me to maximize the impact of the ideas we come up with and we end up executing. So even to this day, both as an investor and as a tech entrepreneur, I continue seeing entrepreneurship more as a need to achieve another kind of goal rather than the entrepreneurship being the goal itself.
What did your parents say when you started a business at 14?
Well, my dad had nothing to say because he left home when I was a year of age. And, my mom, she was actually very supportive. So what happened is I figured that I could offer data entry services for college students that they wanted their thesis projects on digital format so they could iterate on them quickly. Using the feedback that they got from their professors. And this was popping up in several places in Bogota. And I realized maybe I can do that. And I asked the only friend I had whose brother had a computer to print a page that said, se pasan trabajos a computador, we transcribe college papers, if you want to call it. And I got 10 photocopies of that. I posted them on all over my neighborhood, and people started coming in and knocking on the door. And I realized that I couldn't tell them I was the one doing the work because they wouldn't believe me. I had to lie that it was my mom, but she wasn't available, but I could give them information. And I started giving different prices and different estimates in terms of time to see what kind of demand we would have. And the big problem is that then people say, okay, great, here it is. When can you have it ready? And we didn't have the computer. So I had to say, oh no, we have like 2 months of work, so we cannot take it right now. So I ended up doing some market research, not realizing what market research was. But with that, I went to the bank. And I had a savings account on that bank for the equivalent of $50 or so for a couple of years. And I waited in line. I finally got to the teller and I told him, hey, I come here for a loan. And of course, the guy cracked up and I got really, really mad. I have a blurry memory of what happened because of how mad I was. But I remember finally being at the office of the bank manager, calming down, and she asking questions, being concerned about why are you here? Why are you asking for money? Where are your parents? Is everything okay? And eventually she was asking questions about the business idea that I had. So I ended up doing my first pitch, not realizing it was my first pitch. As the conversation ended, she told me, here's some paperwork, go fill it out, come back and we'll process your application. So my mom helped me fill the paperwork. I'll do everything with my name, my signature, etc., etc. I came back that on a few days later, I gave her the paperwork, and 2 days later, I got a call telling me that the loan had been approved, that I could go get my money. Yeah, I mean, my mom, my grandmother, my last name is actually not my dad's last name. I changed my last name to my grandmother's last name and my grandmother's last name. And it's because at 82 years of age, she learned how to use the computer to help me transcribe those college projects that people were giving us to transcribe so that I could pay my loan on time. So yeah, they definitely helped me a lot. And to this day, any idea that I throw my mom's way, she's supportive of it.
Why do you think that bank manager decided to give you the loan? What got you across the line? Because I mean, getting that story in the US is really, really impressive and hard, but doing that in Latin America, where like I've been in Latin America for 10 years and I don't think I have a loan in Latin America after all this time. How did you do it?
Well, only later I realized, but many years later, when I understand the banking system, I figured that the bank didn't give me the loan. it was a personal loan out of the manager of that branch. Wow. She decided to give me the money. I'm still looking for her, by the way. I haven't been able to get a hold of her to thank her, because my life would have been very, very, very different if it had not been for that loan. And I don't know. I want, one of the things one of the reasons I want to get a hold of her is to ask her, why did you do it? So yeah, I don't know. I wish I knew.
That's amazing. I hope you find her one day. So what happened next after this business?
So it was 1 year of really hard work, because I had done my math to work 2 to 3 hours per day after coming back from school for 2 years to be able to pay back again the loan. But when I got the loan, she told me that they could authorize it only for 1 year, not for the 2 years. So I had to work my ass off during that year. And as soon as we finished paying for the computer, and I say we because my grandmother and my mother helped me, I realized that now it was time to upgrade the machine. You know, as a good geek, now I wanted a color screen, and I wanted more RAM and a better hard drive, etc., etc. So I figured that if I could buy the components and change them myself, I would save some money on that. So I did that, and I figured I was good doing that. And as other people I knew started buying computers, then I became like the person that helped them like upgrade the computers and set up the printer and all of that. And that ended up eventually becoming a small IT services firm. By the time I was 18, I had 30 people in the company, and I decided to drop college to focus on that. I found a sweet spot working with oil companies and subsidiaries of American oil companies in Colombia, and subsidiaries of especially flour importing companies in Colombia. They were really good clients. They wanted me to connect their offices with their HQs in the US. They will pay better than anyone else. So that kind of became my thing. Then the internet arrived to Colombia. This is 1998. And I figured this is the future. This is what I want to be part of. And I became obsessed with the idea of coming to the US. And after, this is late 90s in Colombia. So terrorism, narco traffic, very difficult to get a visa. You had to wait 6 months just to get the appointment. And most people got those appointments rejected, those visas rejected. But I was lucky enough to get one. And I left everything behind and got a one-way ticket to come to the US. And in here, I wanted to work first, you know, for the large tech companies of the day, Lycos, Compaq, and those. And I figured that my lack of any kind of degree and the terrible English that I had were not good enough. So instead, I found myself working in McDonald's, flipping hamburgers overnight and cleaning bathrooms. But I learned a lot about franchises out of that experience.
And what took you to your next tech business? How did you come up with the idea for Voice123?
So eventually I started meeting some people that were doing things online. Well, eventually not, relatively quickly, within a year or so, as my English improved. So I became the webmaster for a couple of websites. And then I met my wife. This is 2001. And she was a voice actress. And as I learned about her career, I realized that there were a lot of middle people. As a voice actress, if she wanted to find work, she had to hope for a client to contact a casting director. You had to go through a casting director that in turn will contact many talent agents, and talent agents will listen to hundreds of CDs and pick the voices that they like and contact that talent agent. In this case, sorry, that talent, in this case, she will have been my wife if she got lucky. And she will have to go through an auditioning studio, record the audition, then go to the audition will go back to the talent agent, and the talent agent will pick the preferred voices, and then that goes back to the casting director, and then that goes back again to the client. And if all of that work fine, then they all met in an actual recording studio, professional studio, where they will work together for a couple of hours. And if everything went well, then the client will pay yet another party called a paymaster that will get the money, distribute the money amongst everyone, including yet another entity, which were the unions. So a lot of middlemen, which meant that the industry wasn't too meritocratic. It was more about who you know, and to some degree, who were you willing to sleep with. A lot of people on that sector ended up becoming infamous as part of the hashtag #MeToo movement. And we realized, well, like there should be something online. Like for us, having been part of the internet .com bubble and such, like we figured someone should have made something online to cast voice actors, and we couldn't find anything. So we thought that maybe we were crazy, and but nevertheless, we decided to set up a website allowing people to request the casting of voice actors online, and that's Voice123. We work part-time on that project, just coding the website, and my wife capturing email addresses of voice actors until we launched it live, and it took off like wildfire. It's potentially the first and only company so far that the way we imagined that company, like it went live and it worked as expected, and it has worked. It has grown nonstop for over 18 years now. It has almost 500,000 users from pretty much every country out there, and pretty much every single day you're going to be exposed to a project that has found a voice through Voice123.
Why do you think it went like you thought it would? What was so good about this business, or why was it so unique that it actually worked compared to other businesses where you end up having to pivot and find stuff out?
Naiveness. So we made many decisions back in the day, not out of choice, but out of ignorance. So for example, we didn't know what angel investing was. So we never expected that a person will give us money to start the project. We knew what VC money was, what venture capital was, but we never thought about going to those kind of leagues for this. So we figure, for example, we need a business model that is non-transactional, because for us to be able to grow this, we need to charge the voice actors money ahead of time, so they pay us something so we can use that money to go buy ads on Google to get the demand that we are promising them, right? And it ended up working pretty well because that allows us to have a non-transactional business model that ended up being key. If we wanted to have a transactional business model, Voice123 wouldn't be what it is today. But again, we didn't go non-transactional out of choice, but out of ignorance, because, well, we had to make money somehow. So we did the best thing that we could think of. The same with the technology that we implemented and the marketing that, like, we did pay-per-click, not because we thought out of all of those channels to attract traffic, this is the best channel for us. No, it was the only thing that we knew we could use to attract people to the website. No, let's do pay-per-click. Like, that's it. It's been out there for 2 years, so let's do it. So yeah, I think that we were quite lucky that it worked, and it was both this the naiveness of the decisions we made plus the timing. The timing was perfect. It was right about the time where the internet penetration of broadband in the US was going over 50%. So that allowed for the first time for people to be able to send MP3 files via the internet and such. And also, only later we learned that year that we launched, there had been a major strike on the voiceover industry union that ended up motivating a lot of people to go and find other sources of work. But it took like 4 years for us to realize, oh, that helped. We didn't know that had happened. Yeah, etc. I wish that the decisions had been more sophisticated, but the more sophisticated you become, I think the more the less risky you also become, because you can come up with many reasons for something not to potentially work, so you avoid doing them.
I think the first time that I came across your work was with Voice Bunny in the integration you had with Fred Wilson's blog. How did Voice Bunny and Bunny Studios come about, and talk a little about that business journey?
Yeah, uh, so Voice123 is non-transactional, and we bootstrap the company. And several years later, we had a client coming to us and telling us, "Hey, that's great, but I need you not only to connect me with a voice actor. I actually need you to do the entire work. In fact, I don't even care who the voice actor is. I simply need you to complete the recording. So if you have an API, that'd be great." So that was actually a really good idea, and but it was a very different business model, a very different take. So on one hackathon in September 2011, we experimented with the idea of an API to get voice actors for human voices, not text to speech. An API that will take several hours to get back to you, but it will get back to you with an actual voice recorded by a human, a professional voice actor. We created that. And to launch it, we took the blog of Fred Wilson that he copylefts for as long as he gets attribution, and we decided to create a podcast automatically out of that. And we created a page. His blog is abc.com. We bought the domain abc.fm, and we started posting the podcasts in there, and we had a small box that said, "Are you Fred? Copy this JavaScript on your blog, and the podcast is going to show up automatically." And he did, and he wrote a post about that, and it went viral. And for 2 years or so, we hosted the podcast of Fred Wilson, and that gave Voice Bunny a lot of exposure. Eventually, Voice Bunny started offering some other services, not only for voiceovers, but now it does it for dubbing, translations, video animation, now post-production, and many other things. So now the name is BunnyStudio, as opposed to simply Voice Bunny. We bootstrapped that company. So it was really funny because Fred Wilson thought that we did that because we wanted him as an investor. And we were not planning on raising capital for Voice Bunny. I simply love his blog and what he wrote about. And so we had a conversation, etc., and he insisted on investing money in the company. So I started thinking about that. At the end of the day, we decided to continue bootstrapping the company, and with the cash flows of Voice123, and well, BunnyStudio has grown significantly faster than Voice123, and today the two companies continue to grow really fast. In fact, if you use the free version of Spotify today, for example, there is a high chance you're going to come across ads. If you listen to an ad, there is a very high chance that that ad was created by BunnyStudio, where the API of Spotify, the Spotify systems automatically submit requests for the creation of audio ads to BunnyStudio, and BunnyStudio assembles in real time a team of remote creative professionals that work together on each one of those ads by writing the copy, recording the voiceover, adding the audio, doing post-production, quality assurance, and then sending the audio back to Spotify, in some cases in less than an hour.
So two things that I think are really interesting about the decisions. One is bootstrapping, and two is not the entrepreneur dream for some is to sell the company to Facebook or to Google or whatever. And you bootstrap, but also have maintained it and continue to operate and to continue to grow. Talk about that pathway, which I think is a pathway that not enough people understand and not enough people do. And I like seeing people do it. So talk a little bit about that decision and how you think about it.
Well, I think that the reason many entrepreneurs have to sell their companies, and it's because they have to provide liquidity for their investors. And you provide liquidity either by IPOing a company, which even some large companies don't necessarily like the idea of having to IPO, or by selling the business. But most tech investors. I'm a tech investor. I don't want to get dividends from your company. I need you to get me, a 10x, 20x, 30x. Don't pay me a small amount of dividends every year because I don't care. So they are forced to do that to be able to reap the benefits of the company. When you bootstrap a company, you can do whatever you want with the company. You don't need to tell an investor what you want to do or what you don't want to do. And I remember 2007, my mother-in-law was diagnosed with cancer. We told her, hey, where do you want to go? We'll take you anywhere you want to go. We'll travel the world, and because we want you to, have whatever experience you want to have, whether you recover from cancer or not. And she picked Greece. We decided to bring my mother as well. It was a very expensive trip, but we could afford it. Why? Because we own the business. So we took a significant amount of money of the business to be able to pay for this trip in a comfortable way. If I had raised capital for Voice123, I would have not been able to do that. It would have been impossible for me to do it. But the fact that I bootstrapped the company gave me the flexibility to do whatever the fuck I wanted to do with the company, which in that case was very important. So as a consequence, we don't have the pressure of selling the business. That doesn't mean we are not going to sell it, but selling it doesn't become an objective. It becomes just, well, maybe, right? If the money that you're going to give me, it's enough for me to divest the asset, I'll consider that. But it has to be a lot for us to do it, because we have an asset that continues to grow and is very well positioned and benefits from network effects. And those businesses can be there for 1, 2, 3 decades and continue to grow with no problem.
What advice would you give to entrepreneurs that are maybe just getting started when they're thinking about, should I raise venture capital? What business should I do? Should I think about bootstrapping? Like, what do you tell founders when they come talk to you?
So raising capital, I think it's very valuable, not only for the fact that it allows you to have resources that otherwise you wouldn't be able to use, but also it allows you to get a bit of an idea of how terrible the idea you have might be. In some cases, right? In some other cases, it might actually be the opposite, right? But I think that for the average entrepreneur, listening to the feedback of investors is a good thing. Now, for entrepreneurs that are thinking like really crazy stuff, it might be the opposite, right? Elon Musk, he had trouble raising money for Tesla. Peloton, I heard that no VC invested in Peloton initially. He could only raise money from angel investors because the idea was just too bad from the perspective of a VC. So in some cases, it's actually counterproductive, but that's the exception to the rule. So in many cases, I think it is viable. And it's, well, at the end of the day, it's making money with somebody else's money, right? When you bootstrap, you're using your own money to make money, and it gives you more freedom, but that also makes it riskier. If you can use somebody else's money, that might be better. But you need to visualize that it is an expensive path to follow, emotionally speaking, because you're no longer in control of the company, right? You're not going to be able to cash out to get money out of the company until you actually exit the company, actually until your investors end up cashing out. The moment you get money from an investor, you become second in line to cash out, and that means that it's going to be a long-term bet that has to pay really well before you can actually get any benefit out of that. So, but my invitation is try to find alternative ways of raising capital before you raise venture capital. Venture capital is expensive because it comes in exchange of control and equity. Today, there are many other ways in which you can build stuff. For example, crowdfunding, right? If you're building hardware or some kind of software such as video games, crowdfund first and see how it goes before you raise capital. That doesn't mean you're not going to raise venture capital, but when you raise it, if you have the validation of a crowdfunding campaign, it is going to allow you to raise capital at a significantly better valuation and with better terms as well. But if you can bootstrap a business one way or another, it's difficult, but it's beautiful given the control that you end up having.
So tell me a little bit more about your current business. Is this a LinkedIn killer? Because I don't know anybody who likes LinkedIn.
Well, Microsoft definitely likes it enough, given how much money it is making for them. I don't think it's a LinkedIn killer, the same way that I don't think TikTok is a YouTube killer or an Instagram killer. It's just another way. So it's very interesting. Like today, we already know and we take for granted that new social networks can pop up and be successful. And that doesn't mean that the previous social networks have to die, right? If the dynamics are the same, by all means, right? Instagram copied Snapchat and Snapchat has decreased since then. But for as long as the dynamics are different enough, multiple social networks can grow. So you have Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, now TikTok, now Clubhouse, right? And all of them are growing and growing quite well. Yet, for whatever reason, we all take for granted that there is only room for one professional network. It doesn't make sense, especially when it sucks at what many people try to use it for, which is finding candidates and finding work. To this day, most companies, when they find a candidate, it's not because they found it on LinkedIn, it's not because they found the person on a job board, it's because of referrals. So to this day, the process continues to be extremely manual. So Torre, a byproduct might be killing LinkedIn, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think that it's going to be two networks, one more focused on management and self-promotion, another one more focused on getting people connected with jobs that are actually very relevant for them. And that's what we are working with Torre.
So what's the first step for a moonshot? I mean, I would love to see more people do more moonshots, but how do you kick it off? Where do you start?
The first step, it's this is going to sound. I don't want to deter people from doing it, but I'm just being completely honest. It's financial freedom. I mean, the reason I'm pursuing this is because I know that no matter what happens, not only I'm going to be able to fall back into something else that I'm not going to starve to death and my family is not going to suffer, but also I'm not going to let this project die no matter what, right? So those two factors allow me to commit to something that sounds really crazy, but that I believe that with persistence and with enough resources, eventually is going to become a reality. So that's out of like what led me to feel comfortable executing this. Now, the idea, where does the idea come from? Where it's just first principles. My hobby is to look at something and figure why it is there, why it works the way it works, and what did the person that decided on that design had to go through to be able to create that or to build that. And then I try to put myself on the shoes of that person. And with the same context, imagine if I had been able to come up with a better solution. And now with the context that I have, what will be the best solution for that? And it sounds relatively sophisticated, but I'm talking about like this glass, right? Or this mouse, like that's what my brain likes to do. And every now and then, one of those ideas seems to be like a good business idea. And every now and then, one of those ideas seem to be an idea that has the likelihood of reaching billions of people. And Torre is the one where, after going through a very strict questionnaire of 34 questions that I asked myself, all of those, I was able to check the boxes in terms of viability, and that's why I decided to do it.
What are those questions you ask yourself?
Let me open the document very quickly. And, it's a combination of multiple questions that I've seen multiple authors asking themselves. So, for example, Peter Thiel has like a set of 8 questions. You have Nir Eyal in the hook model with 4 questions about how you can hook users. You have a book called Platform Revolution that also analyzes the dynamics of two-sided marketplaces. But in general, here's a random sample of the questions. Is there a unique opportunity that I've identified that others don't see, and why? That's one of the most philosophical ones. But another one would be, how are we going to not only tackle existing demand, but create new demand? How can we reduce costs while delivering more value? Why is the market ready to be intermediated or disintermediated? Another one is, how can we allow users to very quickly and easily join the network and begin participating in the value creation process? What's going to bring back existing users to the network that has to do with engagement? How are we going to solve the chicken and egg dilemma? Can we limit multi-homing? That is, people using multiple networks to solve the same problem. Can we have an API for others to use? What's the core metric that is going to allow us to measure success? What are the most important factors critical to success that, if they don't work, are going to lead to all failure, etc., etc. All of those, I need to have a really clear answer, and that lets me to believe, yes, this is doable. And for Torre, all of them were positive, not only with one answer, but in many cases with multiple answers, which makes for an even stronger case.
If you could go back to when you were first starting your first business as a 14-year-old, knowing everything you know today, what advice would you give yourself?
That's a really good question. What advice would I give myself? It's very risky, because a lot of the things that I've done, I did them out of naiveness. And if I had known more, that would have altered significantly my decision making. Potentially the most important one is go find mentors early on. Life is too short to make the same mistakes others have already made. You want to make a lot of mistakes, but you want to make new mistakes, things that where no one else has learned about that topic, so you get unique insights that allow you to continue iterating and experimenting with new ideas.
Do you have any books, blogs, podcasts, or documentaries you like to recommend to people, whether about startups or just life in general?
Wikipedia, for once. I'm an addict to Wikipedia. There's so much stuff to learn. And actually, in here I have a small collection of books that ended up shaping my life. I don't like to recommend books, because I think it depends a lot on the person. But Foundation from Isaac Asimov. I read that book when I was 10 years of age. I didn't understand most of it, but it really woke up on me this passion for sci-fi and what the future could be. The documentary series of Carl Sagan, the original one, Cosmos, that also shaped my life a lot. More recently, the book Platform Revolution is a really good academic analysis on two-sided networks. I enjoy that book quite a lot. And books that I've enjoyed reading recently, the biography of Benjamin Franklin by Isaac Walterson. It's a joy to read, quite a polymath. And I recently got a copy of the very first print of the Encyclopedia Britannica from 1673, I believe it is. And it's fascinating. It's only three books, but it is fascinating to see, 1766. It is fascinating to see how knowledge was back in the day. Like if you look in here, United States, of course, it doesn't exist, right? Or if you look for things such as galaxy, it does exist, but it has a different description of what we know as a galaxy today. So it's been a joy just to randomly go through that book, and of course I recommend the book that I wrote not long ago, Remoter, the why and how of building remote teams. I started writing this before the pandemic and released it the second half of last year, and it's gotten a lot of good traction.
I can second Foundation and the Ben Franklin book. I read both of those this year during the pandemic. Really good.
Awesome.
What's next for the business over the next, say, 2 to 3 years?
In Torre, so we surpassed not long ago the milestone of having 1 million users in the platform. So we are very excited about it. We have users in more than 180 countries. So we are building a real global network in there. And a few weeks ago, we did the first interviewless hiring process for a software development job, which is awesome. Placing a software developer in a job opening without the person having to go through interviews. We are doing that faster than we thought we were going to do it. So still there is a lot of technology to develop. This is as deep tech as it gets on HR tech. A lot of things that need to go right, a lot of dynamics that we have to figure, while at the same time figuring out how to scale. The methodologies that we did to reach that 1 million users are unlikely going to be the same ones that are going to allow us to reach 10 million, which is the goal we have for this year, which are unlikely going to be the same ones that allows us to get to 50 million. So every year we are kind of reinventing what we do and developing more viral functionalities and others to be able to hit that next milestone. But if everything goes according to plan, within the next 3 years or so, we should be hitting 100 million users and helping millions of people already find work that is fulfilling for them.
Well, I hope you do it, and it's going to be fun to watch you continue to execute. Thank you for sharing your story. I really enjoyed it. It's amazing to hear it, and I'm sure we'll do a follow-up either on remote work or catching up with you as you continue to execute down the road. Thanks again.
Awesome, Nathan. Thanks a lot for your time. And just in case, for the listeners, the company that I talk about today, it's Torre.co, Torre.co, and I am also available on social media at Torrenegra, my last name.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of Crossing Borders with our guest, Alex Torrenegra, and thank you to Angel Andraca for producing this podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share with a friend and give us a rating on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's the best way to share what's going on in Latin America's ecosystem.